I was going to talk about my wife first, but after hearing this about chelation, I would like to just address that issue for a minute. Before I ever met Dr. T, back in '84, I told my wife that if I had to continue to do my job the way I had done for years, I wouldn't be able to do it because I couldn't concentrate enough for what it took. And of course, so I had 2 physicals. Everybody said you need to quit smoking, quit drinking, all this stuff, and that was all that the problem was. In '86, I found a clinic up in Plano when we moved back from Canada, and had all the tests run up there, all the ultrasound and everything else, and they ran light beams on my toes. They couldn't find any blood circulation in my toes. There had to be a little bit, or obviously they'd have been dead, but it was so slight they couldn't find it with light beam. Back of my legs were 88 to 92% blocked. My carotid arteries were as close to 100% as they could determine. And it just went on and on. There wasn't any, and the doctor finally said, you know, really, it's only by the grace of the good Lord you're still moving. You should really be dead by now or have had a stroke. But you will not see Christmas. We can guarantee that. You won't be here in 3 months. Nobody can survive this. I ended up taking chelation treatments in Austin, Texas at that time. The difference, and it saved my life. It went. And to address that issue of feeling that difference, the first 20 probably saved my life, but from 20 to 40, nothing happened. And I thought, oh, this isn't going to work for me. But from 40 to 60, it just took the rest of the blockages out. And I stopped at 60 treatments. It saved my life. The difference being, when I met Dr. T later years, he supplemented the whole thing with better chelation and the supplements that it takes to put the things back in that up there, it was just strictly take it out and go with it. So as far as chelation therapy, you cannot find better than to have Dr. T and his staff do it, because it's really a better a protocol all the way through, because they're treating the whole body, not just rooting out the harmful. So I would encourage you to do it like that. But it does work. It saved my life, and it's saved a number of people that we've referred for it. There's nothing that matches it. But what I really wanted to talk about a little bit was reconstructive therapy. Back in 1992, my wife Barbara was involved in a serious car accident. Her little car was totaled when a truck hit her at 75 miles an hour in the back end, put the back wheels right up to the front seat. I remember when I got there at the scene of the accident, the officer that arrived first told me, he said, I don't mean to say that I was slow, but he said, when I pulled up, in my mind, I said, there's no reason to get in a hurry because nobody's alive. And obviously she was alive. She's here today. But a year after the accident, after all the orthopedic surgeons and chiropractors, sports medicine doctors from Austin to Dallas, we had the Dallas Cowboy sports medicine doctors treat her. The whole issue was she couldn't raise her arm, even horizontal. And that was the big issue. And at that time, the good Lord intervened and said, you need to be aware of this. I read it, actually, it came from your friend out in California in his medical newsletter about reconstructive therapy. And so I researched that, and the doctor up in Dr. Faber up in Milwaukee is the one that referred and said, you need to go see Dr. Trowbridge about this. At that same time, we saw a neurosurgeon who referred us to a shoulder surgeon in Houston who supposedly was one of the top in the world at that time. That gentleman did a full evaluation. And when he was done, he sat down behind his desk and he says, if you were my wife, you wouldn't be having any shoulder surgery because it will not work. It cannot be successful. And it won't be me doing it. But you wouldn't be taking these painkillers either because they're not good for you. You'd be going to see this man, and he's writing as he's talking, and he pushes the card across, and he said, this man has been gifted by the Lord with that rare ability to almost see through the human body down to the DNA, almost like an electrical engineer can see how electricity flows through all the components on a schematic. He can just see it, how it flows through to the intended purpose. He said, so this guy has this rare ability. And he said, that's where you would go if you were my wife. But he said he's a radical, he's a maverick, he's hated by a lot of doctors, but he said that's the way it is. And he pushes the card across, and it's Dr. Trowbridge. So now you know what you're up against, okay? Well, so we came and saw him. He told Barbara, this is the way it's going to happen. And 16 treatments later, Barbara had full range of her shoulder, full movement. And it was really critical because that was her bridge hand, okay? And so it really was important. I mean, you can't slap those cards down if you know. Anyway, the irony is that out of the whole thing, I saw how successful this was. I said to Dr. T, you think you could fix my back? When I was 23, I got hit in the back with about 700 pounds and knocked off a drilling rig and landed on a bunch of railroad ties, and it pretty well did a number on me. And so I've lived with a lot of pain, and one time I was 6 months, my sciatic nerve locked up so bad I was about 6 months recovering from that one. And he does an examination, says your back would be a piece of cake, but it's your knee that has to be addressed first. And I said, we're not going down that road, because they want to do a knee replacement, total knee replacement. So I'm not going to have it. Something will go wrong. I'll end up worse. So I went and had all the x-rays and everything else, and he said, I've never done a knee quite messed up like your knee, but if you've lived with it all these years, maybe we could fix it good enough so that you could keep going and let me do your back. In the end, he fixed my knee, he fixed my back, he's done my elbow, he's done my other knee, and they've all been successful, completely successful. I am absolutely amazed. I mean, I still do at times some heavy lifting and things like that. All of it has worked. There's just nothing that hasn't. And last year, of all things, Barbie came down, we were on vacation, and her arms swelled from her wrists all the way up to her elbows, swelled up. You'd have thought it was like elephant's feet, is what I call it, almost like they were going to burst. And so anyway, Barbie's allergic to doctors in general, and Dr. T in particular. She does not like to get near the clinic. But anyway, she came down. I don't know what he did, but anyway, that was a year ago. We don't have that anymore. It's all taken care of. But out of the whole thing, he had her go through a complete physical at the Herman Heart Hospital. When they were running all the tests, they found out she has severe heart blockages. They gave her 3 years to live. And so now she's undergone chelation therapy. It's pretty well under control. She's pretty well has it whipped. She's going to, by Christmas, she'll probably be done taking treatments. And it's all been because of the protocol that Dr. T and his staff use. I mean, you just cannot find better medical treatment anyplace. So I would encourage all of you, to do what that shoulder surgeon told me. Just go see him and do it. Whatever he says, just take it to the bank and do it. Thank you for your time.